time to plant our hidey food plots, and they can be great hunting locations. Hidey food plots are small by definition, and a small plot in the middle of timber, well, it's easy for deer to overbrowse high quality forage during the summer. So when I'm planting my spring hidey food plots, I typically use a blend. It has some stuff in there that deer will eat and other stuff that's not as palatable to keep weeds at bay and to help improve the soil for that fall blend. When I'm laying out hidey food plots, I'm not just thinking, well, I'm gonna put some food here. They're not large enough to be a destination plot. I want to have food like in a stopover or a travel corridor. So in this situation, I've got a larger food plot just over here and another one over the ridge. So big deep valley going off here. This is a perfect staging area, or in a travel corridor, especially during the pre-rut and rut, as bucks are checking out both those plots. This plot was planted last fall with Eagle Seeds Fall Buffalo blend, and many components of that blend have now matured. Those roots are going down, really improving the soil and creating huge weed protection and erosion control on the top. Now, it's been raining like crazy. You've probably seen all the storms and flooding and wind damage here in the Midwest. We got a little break in the rain right now. It's steep, rocky, and way too small to bring the no-till drill in. So we're gonna broadcast seed into the plot and then use a foot crimper, the baby Goliath I call it, to push the standing vegetation down, cover that seed, and also suppress any weeds that might be trying to grow. By leaving this vegetation in place, just mashing it over, there'd be zero erosion here, and we're building soil by allowing this to decompose over time. We're gonna get started, and I will explain the process and share several lessons about using the buffalo system in hidey food plots.
Growing Deer is brought to you by Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. Also by Reconics, Eagle Seed, Winchester, Avian X Decoys, Lacrosse Footwear, Morel Targets, Hoyman, Hooks Custom Calls, Summit Tree Stands, RTP Outdoors, Yamaha, Fourth Arrow, Onyx Hunt, Scorpion Venom Archery, Case IH Tractors, Bloodsport Arrows, Code Blue, D-Code, G5 Broadheads, Prime Bows, and Redneck Hunting Blinds.
Of course, one of the first decisions you need to make before planting anything, but especially a hidey food plot where you're using a buffalo system, is timing. I've left this standing, the wind blew some down behind me, but I want to make sure, since I'm using the baby Goliath, the foot crimper, depending on my weight or whoever's using it weight, to make sure the cereal rye is in the dough stage, which means when I squeeze a seed, you can see some moisture coming out of my finger there, moisture comes out. That's called the dough stage. The seed is forming, and that forming is large enough that it's holding moisture. Think about really moist bread dough. That's what this should be inside the seed. The cereal rye is clearly ready, but when you look down, there's a great crop of an annual clover below the rye. I know the clover's ready because these flowers are hollow and the seed actually forms inside there. So when I try to get one out, and when I take that, and you don't squeeze the whole thing, remember that's a whole bunch of seed, I want one, and I squeeze this, oh yeah, it just busts open like a watermelon, very moist on the inside. So it's the perfect time to terminate this using a crimper. The reason it's important to wait until the primary crops, the ones that are making up the most space, are in the dough stage, is you want to be able to terminate them easy using a crimper. In this case, we're using a foot crimper without using a herbicide. So pull this up, because it just crimps real easy. If you just watch this, it's just so easy right now. And that way I can terminate it. When you crimp, well, that means the circulatory system's broken and it can't get nutrients up to the seed head for them to mature and become hard, viable seed. Now, it seems like a good thing, I could get free seed, but if you had that, they would germinate their own time. It's not the time of year to plant this cereal rye. And then there's, I don't know, probably 50 to 80 seeds on here. Well, that would be all that seed right in one place, way too thick, too much competition. The rye wouldn't grow well, and the crop we're getting ready to plant would not grow well. Big grass plants like this is an annual grain, big grass plant. Look, I'm 6 foot tall, a little bit over, and this is almost as tall as me, so about 6 feet. When you take this and you think about all of it that's laid down, think how thick this would be if that was standing up. This dry weight, all the moisture's out, and there's not much moisture left in here. The tonnage here, 1% of that on average is nitrogen. So let's just say, you know, you got 1,000 pounds in a small area. Well, 1% of that is 10 pounds, and that 10 pounds is nitrogen. That's not counting if we get a clover and say there's just, you know, another, I don't know, ton, whatever there is of clover out here. I'm just throwing numbers out. Well, when you have a legume, 3% of it, of the body of the plant, is nitrogen. I'm not talking water, dry weight. 3% is nitrogen. So now you got 30 pounds. So if we just had the cereal rye, there's other crops in here, but the cereal rye and the clover, that's 40 pounds of free nitrogen. Don't think 40 pounds per acre. This is less than 1/10 of an acre. Guys, do the math on that. There's ample nitrogen to grow a crop in here this summer without me having to pay to add more. Hey, just want to take a moment today to introduce to you Scott and Josh. Scott will be a sophomore at Mississippi State, and Josh will be a senior at Virginia Tech. We've got 2 more coming in, and I'll introduce them later. But today, guys, we're going to plant this small hidey food plot. I love interns for a lot of reasons. A lot of people don't know this. I was an intern. I worked with mule deer out in Nevada through SCA, Student Conservation Association, and that was an absolute kickstart to my career. So I want to pay back, and our program's real simple. We want to give them a lot of education off camera. We've been identifying plants and talking about a lot of stuff. And also, we got a lot of work to do at the Proving Ground. So it's a trade-off, and hopefully we're teaching them stuff they won't get in a textbook, practical experience like seeding, how we're doing here. And they help us get jobs. They help us get tasks done. And at the end of the day, well, guys, we hope they have enough experience. It's easier for them to get a position when they graduate. An easy way to accurately determine the acreage, I use Onyx. I can have it right out in the field. You can even get the map offline, so you can do it if you don't have service. Maybe we're down the valley or something. And I pull up the plot, and then I just simply go to area shape and just start tracing it out. You know, and if I'm off 10% on something like this, it's not a big deal. And I've got right at 1,200 feet. And I think I probably wasn't quite right there. So I'm going to say about 1,300 feet, give it an extra 100, 200 feet. And that allows me to determine how much seed I need to plant. So I'm simply going to use my calculator, and I enter 1,300 square feet. Divide that by the square footage of an acreage, 43560. And it gives me 0.9. So let's say 3, and that's not 3/10 of an acre. That's 3/100. If I had a cleaner planting area, Eagle Seed Summer Blend, it's an experimental blend. I always get these in, hey Grant, what are you planting? Why are you planting? It's an experiment. If I tell you and it doesn't work, you'll be mad at Eagle and me. So I'm not telling you exactly what's in there. We'll show it to you later in the summer, see how it's doing. But I've got this blend, which is to be planted at 25 pounds per acre under better conditions. I want to double that, so I'm going to say 50 pounds per acre. So I've got 3/100 of an acre, and I want to plant the equivalent of 50 pounds per acre. So I take 50 pounds times 0.03. That tells me 1.5 pounds. 1.5 pounds. Now, it's a small area, but you can go through 1.5 pounds really quickly. So we want to open up the gauge on our broadcaster just big enough for the largest seed to go through. Hold it up high so it spreads really well, and walk really quickly. If you just kind of go slow, but you're turning this faster, call that seed to be planted in the first half, and you have way too much seed for the area. And that's 1.8. Here we're at 2.2. We take 5 off. So, just that small amount of seed, that's all we got, right? There's a gauge, 1 through 5. You definitely don't want on 5, because when you open that all the way up, that lets this come way open, and you turn it and all of a sudden, oh, my seed's gone, right? Again, it's not the expense. We don't want it so crowded that it's out competing and they're just little munchkins plants in there. We want these plants to express full potential. So you can tell we got a whole bunch of different species in there. And I like blends because a lot of research shows that about 8 or more species growing together, 8 kind of seems to be the magic bottom number. I want warm season legumes for a warm season crop, warm season grasses, warm season broadleafs, and usually at least one of a brassica. So turnips will grow in the summer, not too good. Some of the mustard, some of the rape, something like that. That covers kind of all the classes of plants. When you get all that going together and they're all, it's not like a garden, a row of mustard, a row of grass, a row of legume. They're all mixed together under the ground. Think of an iceberg. You only see the top third or so, right? Under the ground, those roots are doing magic together, and that's what frees up more nutrients and makes it much more drought resistant. We've broadcast the seed, so now it's really important to terminate the standing crop. We don't want to use a herbicide here. I'm not opposed to herbicide. I just want to use the least amount I have to. And also, when you terminate with the crimper, it lays it over and makes much better mulch. You can see on the standing stuff, sun's going through here. But if you lay this 6 feet over, it's covering more ground. So when you lay this all over, it will keep the sun from baking out the moisture. The plant, remember, has onboard energy, so it's going to germinate, come up through it. As soon as those leaves are above the mulch, it's going to be growing, and we've got a weed mat, just like mulch in your garden. You've seen us in our larger food plots use the Goliath crimper. It looks like a roller, but it's got blades on it at an angle, and that again breaks the stem. We don't want to just mash it down. Think about driving through your yard with a, maybe you're backing up a boat trailer or something. Your wife, oh, you got tracks in the yard. And a day or two later, you can't even tell where you were because the grass just stands back up. So we need to crimp or break the circulatory system. Well, we can't get the tractor in here and steep. So we've got the baby Goliath. This is by RTP Outdoors. It's for these small hidey food plots where it's perfect. So this metal is not sharp. We don't want to cut it. You cut your grass, it regrows, right? We just want to crimp it. So this is kind of flat here, and it's about 6 inches apart. And so the secret here is you put that on your boot, or you can just do this. I do this a lot, where you pick this up, then step forward. And you need to crimp about every 6-8 inches. So you're not taking great big steps. You're just, you do that and put your weight on it. I kind of rock it usually a little bit, take another step. And you can see right here on the edge, I wasn't even meaning to, but I'll crimp this. And I'm just doing it like this and putting your weight on there. You look behind me right here, it's staying down. So this is a foot operated crimper. It's a great tool for people that want to use the buffalo system in smaller plots. This is a great tool. You could do a bigger plot. It's just, it takes time, takes more energy. So anyway, this is the crimper. I love it, and we're gonna bring Scott and Josh back in and introduce them to crimping. There are many advantages to crimping, doing what we're doing right now. And of course, it's laying it down. You can tell less sun is going through there. That's our weed control, erosion control. Water's going to hit that mulch we've created, slow it way down, and just trickles into the soil. The sun is not getting to the soil, the dirt, therefore it's not heating up. And as soil heats up, it evaporates more moisture. I'm talking a difference between 85 degrees and 95 degrees surface soil temperature makes a big difference. So we're insulating the soil, keeping it more moderate, not too cold, not too hot. This is perfect. And another huge factor, well, it's slow release fertilizer. Those crops, they've been taking nutrients out of soil for quite some time. That's what roots do, pulled up to the plant. They're just about making seeds, so they're packed full of nutrients right now. We're terminating that, and it will release those nutrients really slowly. And think about this, it's the perfect slow release fertilizer. If you haven't been following, a lot of farmers, rural America, what's really hurting, commodity grain prices, corn, soybean, wheat, other crops are all very low. I checked last week, and the price for corn was $3.18 a bushel. Farmers can plant X number of acres and think they're going to harvest Y bushels, and they can go ahead and get a contract for that now. $3.18 a bushel isn't much. You got to think about the price of fertilizer and seed and herbicide, insecticide, fungicide, tractors. They're all way up. It makes it very difficult for farmers to make a profit. That's where the buffalo system really comes in. We're significantly reducing those input costs, giving a really good yield, and allowing farmers to maintain, or even over time, as the soil improves, increase those profits. We shared those techniques and strategies with Bob Fry, a landowner north of here, last week, and I want to share some of the techniques we shared with Dr. Fry to apply to agricultural land. I'm in a cornfield that was planted with soybeans last summer, but no fall cover crop. And it's really flat compared to the proving grounds. It's extremely flat, but all kind of erosion in here. And you see these little rivulets right here, I call them, that's 6 inches wide and maybe an inch deep compared to the other side. You think, well, that's not much, but remember, over an acre, the thickness of a piece of typing paper is a ton of soil. Well, these little rivulets are all through here, an inch deep. It doesn't take many rivulets an inch deep to equal a ton. Remember, the average soil loss in Iowa each year is 5 tons per acre. Folks, we make a living. Our groceries come from soil. Soil is the most important resource we have. We got to take care of it. If they would have harvested the soybeans, planted a cover crop, come in here then and drilled the corn in the cover crop, and then terminated that cover crop and left the corn standing, there'd been no erosion, a lot more nutrients for the corn crop, wouldn't have had to add so many synthetic inputs, and wouldn't have near the weeds we're seeing now. That's just one part of the buffalo system. Certainly no erosion, and a much reduced need for synthetic inputs, because all this erosion you see was putting those synthetic inputs in the watershed. Spinach, for example, on average, always averages, right? Spinach right now is 40% less iron than it did 3 decades ago. Carrots are 63% less nutritious than they were a few decades ago. Apples are almost nothing except some fiber. A lot of oranges anymore have no vitamin C, none, zero. This is all due to depleted soil from chemical stress and monoculture and tillage. There is no chance on the planet, none, zero, that tillage can ever improve soil. It's impossible. When you look at the physics of soil, I know these are radical statements. I know, I've been through this for years now. But when you till, you break down that pore structure and the tilth and all kinds of things. But what most people see that because that's tangible. What they don't see is you allow massive amounts of oxygen in the soil. And the good bacteria, there's about 1,700 species of good bacteria to every one bad species in the soil, common soil bacteria. They're not made for that much oxygen, so you kill them like that. Mycorrhizal fungi, if you got it and we get out here in the soil, look, it looks like the finest little spider web going through the soil, okay? And it's not a plant, but in common term, one plant could easily cover that whole bottom. But if you ever disc one time, it's dead. And this is so cool, man. This is like, I don't know if you guys are believers or not, doesn't matter, but only God could do this. Evolution could not do this. And if you're short of phosphorus over here, and the buffalo died over here, and it gets in that fungus, it goes to the plant. And the plants excrete exudates, which is just a fancy word for stuff going out of root, leaking out of roots. It actually leaks out of roots. They're not like pumping it out, it leaks out, okay? And that puts out a signal, I need this. But a lot of farmers just say phooey. I've been discing forever, or I've been planting monoculture forever, or I've been using fungicide. When you use fungicide, you kill mycorrhizal fungi. You're killing one of the best things out there in the whole soil.
Obviously, you were here when this place was started. It was mostly fescue.
Yeah.
So my question is, when you first start your food plots, because we've got some other places that we're going to make, do you till them to start with? How do you get the fescue out of it?
Spray, burn.
Spray, spray burn and then no-till.
I can promise you, I'll bet my farm on this. When you disc, you're just gonna have more fescue come up because it's been making seeds for however long it's been there. And when you expose new soil, it's just gonna germinate. The way you get rid of fescue is spray. You have to use herbicide. I'm not anti-herbicide. I just want to use the least amount I need to.
Absolutely. It's
So, yeah. So I'm not anti-herbicide. People think I'm not organic. I'm not anti-herbicide. I just want to use it as a tool, and I don't want to use any more than I have to. Right? It takes time, labor. It's nasty. Blah blah blah. So I'm going to spray, and I use a lot of prescribed fire, and then I would probably plant the first year a Roundup Ready crop. I'm not anti-GMO. I just don't want to use it if I don't have to. Right? And that allows me to spray again to get any more fescues coming up. And then when you crimp or you add mulch, you're covering that fescue seed. Weed seeds can't germinate if they're covered by about 1/2 inch of soil. I would just get out of tilling business. If you would like to learn more about the buffalo system, check out the Buffalo System or Food Plot playlist, and all of our past episodes on this subject can be viewed there. Whether you have a garden or a flower bed, or you're making food plots, or you're producing agricultural crops, it's a great way to be outside and enjoy creation. But most importantly, take some time every day to be quiet and listen to what the Creator says to you. Thanks for watching Growing Deer.